Welcome back, everybody, to Catapult Your Business, where we help catapult business owners one question at a time. I've got an awesome guest today. He's been a client for several years out of Arizona, has done some amazing things. He brings an amazing question to the table today, which is, if I want to grow via acquisition, I've got this huge vision. I'm going to grow organically, but I also want to grow via acquisition. What is the criteria and what type of risk should I really be taking? And we're going to dive into that and probably so much more. But before we get to that question, let me bring in our special guest today, Doug Caris. Welcome to the call.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. We're glad you're here. CEO of Arizona Painting Company, has built just an unbelievable company here. And the way you got started is amazing. I want to dive into that for a moment. We talked prior, like you realized you wanted to be a business owner in middle school. I don't think a lot of people can say that. What was there, like this moment? Like what was it briefly that just made you go, this is the route?
Yeah, I think growing up, I mean, my dad was involved in a business, a kind of a network marketing business, and I think listening to a lot of the motivational tapes and listening to a lot of the speakers, at a young age, from being around that kind of environment and learning from him, that really I think kind of catapulted me into having that mindset of wanting to do that. I didn't want to go down the path of I didn't want to do what everybody's told, right? Go to school, get a good job, work for a company for
Yeah.
60 years and then retire. Like I wanted to do something different. I wanted to
Make it
kind of
sound
create
so
my
doom
own
and
path.
gloom.
Yeah.
You make it sound so doom and gloom.
Yeah.
It's well, I obviously share a very similar background to you. I don't know if you know that about me, Doug, but I had a very similar. I was the guy rollerblading, paper routes, doing lawn care companies in high
Mhm.
school to make a buck to pay for college. I know you went to school and actually dropped out, right? And jumped right into business a lot faster. I finished school for the purpose of appeasing my mom and a degree of entrepreneurship, which was at that time I don't know if I really learned anything about entrepreneurship, but it was interesting to say I got the degree. So I can
Yeah.
obviously relate to that environment. And what's really unique is a lot of times people go off and get other experience and then they start a business. You had a little bit different of a track, right? You actually came out and said, "I'm going to go start working from the ground up." And the person that became your mentor, and you did every aspect of the role of this, very large painting company you've created. To ultimately being able to buy it out. Is that true? That's kind of how the transition went. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So there were a couple different branches of the company that I worked for, but yeah, I was 19 years old. I'd done a semester at junior college and stopped doing that. I knew I just needed to get into a business where I could learn and try to work my way up, and then hopefully eventually go start my own. That was my plan. And I was
Yeah,
19 years old. I was looking at maybe doing college pro painters in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and
sure.
I
Know a
called
little something about that.
I know, yeah, I know you do, right? So yeah, so
A
I
little something.
called a guy that I knew had done it, that had been pretty successful in Michigan, and I asked him his opinion. He was running a painting company in Atlanta at the time. He offered me a job. He kind of sold me on the idea, hey, you could do that, or you could just come down, maybe learn a little bigger business, right?
Yeah,
Kind of a not a franchise model, but learn how to run a business from me, and then maybe go start your own. He kind of sold me on that idea, so I left. I left friends, family, everything, right, from Michigan, and moved down to Atlanta, worked there for a year, and then also he had a partner at the time who that person ended up becoming my mentor, and I worked
yeah.
for him for the next 6 to 7 years and got out here to Phoenix, and then he was ready to retire, and then me and my
Oh,
two other
goodness.
partners did a buyout deal with him. Yeah.
Well, and you've had some unbelievable growth, right? Like you're talking 40 employees to 200 plus employees, one location to five location. I mean, kudos, congrats to you and your team. I know it's not done all by yourself, but just an unbelievable job. And in the painting industry, you're a rare breed, right? To get that level of growth and to see that type of journey, that's phenomenal. And I also just want to thank you for trusting. I know you work with Jeff Rendell there, our advisor there
Mhm.
out of Arizona area. So thank you for slowing down to let us partner with you without equity to help you grow and scale that company. So we've really enjoyed the partnership. I hope you have as well.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's been an amazing journey, like you said, right? The last 7 to 8 years since me and my two partners bought out our mentor and kind of former owner. It's been an amazing journey. It's been a lot of ups and downs, but it's been awesome to kind of look back and see where we started and kind of where we're at today. And for me, where we're going, right? That's what I'm the most excited about is where we're going in the future here.
Yeah. Well, I know I speak for Jeff. You've got an extreme amount of talent, and what you're doing is absolutely trailblazing a little bit of what growth can look like in an industry where you don't normally see that type of growth, right? You usually see more of that single shingle mom and pop shop, working out of a truck, maybe a crew or two, and you've built it into something very sophisticated and continue to charge. And I know you've got a very aggressive vision that you're working towards in the organization. You shared that with us, and I think it's awesome. Do you mind if I share it with everybody? So
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
working,
that's fine.
yeah, you're working to become $100 million company, and so what? You're going to have to triple. Is that about right?
Yeah, yeah. This year, hopefully, we'll be just under 30 million. So yeah, we'd have to about triple
So
to do
just
that.
over a little bit of triple the business, and you're going to do that organically by continuing to invest in your culture. I know, obviously, we work with this. We
Mhm.
have some intel of what you're working on, but there's also this other part of growing via acquisition. And I
Yep.
think a lot of companies think about this idea of, do I grow organically and invest in the company and create that growth, or do I invest in other companies and fold them in or create new sister companies that help grow the organization? And I've grown Cultivate mostly organically, but we've actually acquired several companies to be able to grow a little bit as well faster. So a lot of people go after this, but it's a conversation that I don't know if that many owners slow down to think about, like, well, what type of risk should I really take on, right? Or what type of
Mhm.
criteria should I really look at? And you can research and hear every perspective out there, good, bad, the ugly, of what to look for. But I think each industry can be slightly different. So what I'd love to hear from you today about is, as we dig into this, is more just about why growth via acquisition. Why do you think that maybe might be the right path? Because I know some others that are listening in today might be going, I'm trying to figure out if I want to do that or not.
Yeah, so part of my vision, right, and part of what we feel like we do in our industry is be a leader in our industry, and I feel like as we grow, we can create more opportunities for people to come into our system, be a part of a great business, and especially a lot of our painters having opportunities to move up and maybe get out of painting if they don't want to do that for the rest of their lives. Like as we grow, and a lot of times, like I said, through acquisition, we can create these opportunities for people to maybe do something and learn skills they never thought they were going to be able to actually learn and do. And,
Yeah.
and that's one thing that I get really excited about. We've done one acquisition so far, and we're about to do our second. But that first one, taken one of the main foremen, and now he's a project manager in our company, and probably never would have gotten an opportunity like that had we not done that.
Well, and you've done this, right? Let's go to you first. Like, what did you look for in this first acquisition or two? Like, what were some of the criteria that you paid attention to? Let's start there first before we dive in a little deeper.
Yeah, so this was one that it kind of got passed along to me from another person I know that had started and ran a huge landscaping company here in Phoenix, and
Mm,
he was part of a bunch of business broker sites and got all kinds of listings that came to him, and he saw this and sent it to me, and he had done a lot of acquisitions, and that's how he had grown his company, and then eventually exited, sold to private equity, and got a
yeah.
big payday at a pretty young age, and did really well doing that. And he's the one that kind of first kind of showed me this opportunity, and I talked a lot and asked him a lot of questions, and I started looking at it like, okay, we can either have some ups and downs, or I can grow at maybe 8 to 10%, or doing something like this. I look at we have the opportunities to grow year over year more at 20 to 30%,
Right.
and that's where I first kind of looked at, like, man, this would be a faster, but also I feel like better way to grow versus, we spend a lot of money on marketing, and that's kind of how we've grown over the years, just
Yeah.
getting just more leads coming in through marketing. And I'm looking at the two different ways, whether it's, acquisition and marketing. And I feel like acquisition can be a really good way to get, almost a better return sometimes on those
It's
dollars than
it's more
just on marketing.
it's often more guaranteed though, right? Like, so I think cost of acquisition, right? What's your cost of acquisition for each lead? What's your cost of acquisition for the business? In which you
Yep.
essentially, in some regard, will be guaranteed a certain amount of revenue, right? If you do your due
Yep.
diligence and you set it up, right? So what you're really saying is you put it on the scale to say, do I want to bet in the market that keeps evolving, changing, shifting in terms of marketing channels? Or do I want to go after this thing and go, I'll make sure I build out the culture properly. I know how to do that. I have the systems to implement.
Mhm.
If I can acquire this company, it almost comes out to similar cost, but a little bit more guaranteed, right? I mean, that
Exactly. And you get get other benefits of it too. You get, maybe if you're having an issue hiring and finding employees, you sometimes get,
Oh,
as long
that
as
problem
they
too.
feel welcomed and yeah, feel like it's a great culture that they're coming a part of, they're going to want to stay and work for you, which is going to help you there. Plus the track record of revenue over a certain number of years that you're, like you said, doing your due diligence. That's why, to me, that's why it started to become a strategy I've been thinking more about, and over the last couple of years, saying this is the way that I think we need to grow, and focus on.
Are you getting the advice you need for your business from this episode? Do you want to get more than just one question answered and have it customized to you and your business? Well, Cultivate Advisors works one-on-one with thousands of business owners every day. Let them help you scale your business today. Don't just listen to this episode. Take action and go to cultivateadvisors.com to see which advisor you get matched with and receive a free 2-hour business assessment on how you could scale your business to the next level. Act now at cultivateadvisors.com.
A lot of companies look to maybe do the acquisition, but they realize like, oh, there's this huge burden of cost, right? And this risk you have to take on. You asked about the criteria that you look for, and I'm definitely going to share some thoughts today. But what's the criteria you look for? Like when you go out in the market right now, what is that? And then we'll build off of that, and then talk a little bit about how to approach the risk as it pertains to that criteria.
Yeah, so in our industry, we really look for, and I'm looking for a company that has some systems in place. Okay, so they've got to be doing, $700,000 to $800,000 or more, kind of in that range from there
So
to like
you've
one
got a
point.
minimum target. That's
Yeah,
super
minimum
important. You have a
target.
minimum target.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, seven, eight
Yep.
hundred grand or more. They've got to have employees, so we're not really looking for a subcontractor
Owner
model.
operator. Yep.
Um, Yeah, and then also they can't spend a lot in marketing dollars. So if they're spending a ton and that's how they're getting all of their sales and their leads, then if we're already in that market, then it probably wouldn't make a ton of sense for us to purchase them. We're looking for a company that's been around for a long time, 15 to 20 years, ideally, that has a good name, a brand, and has loyal kind of repeat customers. So those are some of the main criteria
That's what
so
you
far.
figured out so far. Yeah. And
Mhm.
well,
Yeah.
and I think what I love, the piece that I love that you talked about is really getting into the weeds to say, is this a company that's driving market growth, or is this a company that's actually growing in the market because of word of mouth?
Yeah.
Right? Like, do they
Exactly.
have a reputation? Are they doing a good service? You're in the service industry, right? I mean, checking out the Better Business Bureau, checking out Google reviews, Yelp reviews, all the places that people figure
Mhm.
out, Angie's List, everywhere that people, put these reviews these days. Without that social backing on the digital side, and then the only way you're going to do that is if you're good, especially in the painting service industry. Obviously, I had 10 years in the painting industry. I know a thing or two of upsetting a few customers, but also making a lot of
Mhm.
customers really happy. And if you're not good at,
Yes, it can
you
be.
know, it
Yeah,
can
it
be a
can be
dangerous.
easy to upset. Yeah, it can be easy to upset a customer, but also, yeah, you have to do a good job, and word of mouth is so
Yeah,
important to a business like ours, any type of painting company. So,
I love that you're. So what I'm hearing you say is the first point of criteria. I'm going to help you kind of systemize what I'm hearing you say a little bit.
mhm,
You first start with quality. You're doing a
mhm.
quality check, like
Yes.
years of service, gotten to a certain size, outside of just the owner doing the work, and ultimately, not driving the marketing engine. They're naturally getting a name and people following them because of the level of work that they do. So they're being, referred to neighbors. Not that they can't have some marketing. So I think I would label that as quality in terms of the put. Now, do you ever slow down to look at labor rates and look at actually what the financial performance of the company is when you're doing this criteria?
Oh, we do. Yeah, absolutely.
You
We're
do double
looking
compare,
at
right?
yeah, EBITDA. We're trying to buy a company for 3 times or less, ideally.
Okay.
So, but based
Yeah,
on their
which is
EBITDA,
yeah, painting's a lot of times a one-time project. You try to get repeat business, but it can be somewhat difficult because at some point you want to sell them on the home, the home or the inside of the home at the
yeah,
time. You're right. So, and if you do a good job, how often do they really need to bring you back? Right?
yes,
It's a
yeah.
unique balance that you have in that in your industry. So that's totally fair. But yeah, getting to a certain level of profitability
Mhm.
is probably important to have the right margins in place. I would imagine that's a really important criteria.
It is, yeah. But part of that, the number side, is we're really looking at their gross margin. So their
Yeah.
profit after paint and labor, right? In our business, paint materials and then labor, profit left. We're really looking at that to make sure it matches up with where we'd want to be, or see if there's a way we see any opportunities to be able to improve that right away
Yeah.
dramatically if we were to purchase them. So that's part of kind of their due diligence
So
process.
you've done a quality check, you've done a financial check. Now, what about the persona check, right? One of the things we want to dive into is the persona of the owner. And a lot of
Mhm.
times you have to get clear. Do you want to buy the owner that's retiring and they're going to move on, or they want to be done with the business, or do you want to actually buy the owner that still wants to stick around and you're going to lead through that owner? What's your experience been so far in that, and what's your perspective of that going forward for your organization?
Yeah, so our first acquisition, the only one we've closed to this point, was down in Tucson just over a year ago. And that owner, he was a pretty young guy, early 40s, but was ready to retire, wanted to move to California.
Yeah,
And
do something different.
yeah, so he was just ready to move on and built a good little business in Tucson. And we genuinely liked him though as a person, right? We got along really
Mm,
good. We felt like he was being honest with us during the whole
sure.
process. And that, I think, especially from the initial, made us feel good about doing this, even though we didn't have a chance really to meet a lot of the employees. We were kind of taking his word for it, but we
Mm.
felt like he was a good person that had built a good business. So that was really important to us, when not keeping him on, to make sure we felt good about just interacting with him at that point.
And would you ever acquire a business though? And this is for everybody listening. You have to think through, like, would you ever acquire to where the owner sticks around?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're actually currently in the process in talks right now with a company in Phoenix where they want to. It's two owners. They want to come work for us. They want an employment agreement. So we're working through
Yeah.
all that as a next potential acquisition. So yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of companies in the painting industry, like you said, mom and pops, like they get to a certain size and level, and then they don't have the systems in place. They don't feel like they have the time or energy to do all the coaching and developing of people you have to do to get to that next level.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of where we're at with this company, is they feel like if we were to acquire them, they come on, they could grow their segment. We could grow that side of the business, that side of painting in our city here, a lot
Sure.
faster than if they try to just keep doing it on their own.
Yeah. Well, you bring the shared resources together, right? And a lot of times you can get some leverage on material costs. There's just some other elements that
Yep.
slowly evolve, right? By getting a bigger size. I think the piece that is interesting that you said there that I want to slow down is I'm surprised that you didn't get to meet the employees of this first acquisition you did. That's that's a unique
Yeah. Well,
piece
I
to pass over.
yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't know. It was our first one. Okay, so we are learning this. I'm
No
learning
judgment
this
there.
as we
I,
go. The
yeah,
the worry, I guess, was not wanting to do that. Is potentially spooking employees, like them, until the deal is 100% done. Like we met them literally. We closed on a Friday, and then we did a meeting with everybody the next Monday morning.
sure.
But the fear a little bit was, if his isn't closed 100%, that if they're going to be worried about, they're going to have a job and then they're just not going to show up on Monday. Like that's what we wanted to avoid. We wanted to make
Yeah.
sure we get them in a room, have a conversation, have the former owner talk first and say, hey, kind of sell them on this is going to be a great deal for you guys too. And then we got to talk, and it went really well. But
Yeah, well, and I would say it's 50-50 from what I've heard, for people that make the acquisitions, that it goes really well, just to be fair, right? And I think when you've done this first one, I don't want to say you got lucky. I just think you were on the right side of the 50-50 split.
yeah.
And it's from our past experience of acquiring, this is a tactic that I've learned from other folks. So this is just me, R&Ding, Rob, and duplicating and sharing out to the world. But
Hmm.
it's really about saying, I always encourage people when they're going to do an acquisition, go throw a party for the other group before you actually do the acquisition. Remove the tension and the hard conversation. Remove the solo interviews of people because they're like, why am I doing this meeting? I think that spooks more than ever. Go to that owner and go, I want to spend X amount as a cost of due diligence. You throw the party. You're the one throwing the party. I'm going to give you the funds to throw this party, and I'm gonna. I just want to be invited as a special guest, as a company nearby doing similar things, and have a chance to go meet everybody and get to shake hands and learn what is that culture made up of. Ask how things are going in a non-threatening environment. But I find when and I'm not saying you're getting everybody drunk. I'm just saying throw a party to help celebrate what they've accomplished, do a barbecue, do something, and let them see, is there a culture? Is there a family that exists within this company? And will this be able, because I'll tell you, criteria wise, what you just experienced is not always the case. And there's probably a lot of listeners and viewers going like, oh yeah, I dealt with a terrible integration. And so that was when I heard that, I go, whoa, back that up. Come up with some way that fits your culture, Doug, to where you can, because I'm going to play devil's advocate to you. If you did spook them and they did think, and again, do this a month before you close. Do this well before the closing. So there isn't like a last minute spook. I agree with that. But if they're spooked around or they can't fathom the idea of somebody else getting involved, to me, that actually tells me to stay away from the business and don't acquire it. Yeah. I want to know that. And some businesses are built to only the owner, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a really good idea. That's a really good point. I just made a note of it. That's definitely what I need to add to, I think, our criteria of doing, like you said, something like that, and really just having a chance to maybe meet some of, at least the key employees, I feel like, but also if we can, right, a bunch of them or all of them. But yeah, I think that's a really good point.
Thanks for tuning in to Catapult Your Business, where Cultivate Advisors is helping you catapult your business one question at a time. Are you running your business, or is your business running you? At Cultivate Advisors, they'll match you with an expert advisor and do a free 2-hour deep dive for your business. This will give you the clarity you need on how to get your business to the next level. Cultivate has worked with thousands of businesses. What do you have to lose? So head over to cultivateadvisors.com and sign up for your free 2-hour session.
Now, how did you check the criteria, of looking past, right? I know so many people that go on to an acquisition, they're so worried about what are you going to inherit. Did you structure the business as you took liability over anything in the past, or did you structure it in a way where it was just the assets came over and you weren't liable for what had happened prior?
Just the assets. Yeah, just the assets. But to keep a good brand and word of mouth, we did take on some warranty things and took care of some things that, we could probably just pushed off to the former owner, but he probably maybe wouldn't have taken care of it, right? He's kind of already out of town, gone. So we did plenty of those things. In that first month, we took care of some stuff. But I think going forward, we actually have set up a better way. We learned a little bit from that first one to make sure we put a little bit of a holdback in the purchase sale agreement to hold back, so an owner now can't push off all their warranty and, like in painting, right, their warranty and touch-ups until
tie that to the warranty period. Yeah,
exactly. So
no brainer.
That's what. Yeah, so we've learned. Like I said, we learned that from the first one. That I think our next one's going to go even smoother and be just even better and less costs of things like that.
Well, I think you're doing the right things. I mean, what I heard you say is you're doing a massive quality check. You're then going through, all right, and you're making sure the financial margin check is in place, right?
Yep.
Then you're looking at the ownership structure and like how is that owner's involvement set up, and what's the staff set up? And then as you get into the staff, what I think you're going to be adding is now this staff measurement of going, what type of staff are we looking for? What percentage of people do we think we'll be able to keep on? Because I would actually argue that generating the revenue for the acquisition is not going to be the toughest part. It's going to be who you inherit. And we all know in the trades business, it can be very difficult right now to find really good tradespeople. And so even,
definitely.
Doug, even field visits, like going out and getting to do a field visit and walk around the house, see their work, see how they work, see the skill and the technique of these tradespeople you're going to be bringing into your organization. Right now, when you had one, you could be really involved. But the biggest tip I want to give you from somebody who's seen multiple and helped a lot of companies with multiple is when you start to take on multiple acquisitions and you grow the acquisitions, your world's going to shift a lot where you don't have near the level of control to do what you just did. And so having those additional checks and balances, and you almost want to create a report card where you could send other people down there to watch and give accreditation to where are people at and figuring out the right way and the right narrative to explain to the crew of why you and that owner are currently walking on site is something that's definitely delicate and you have to slow down and keep in mind. But this goes for any business, of any product or any service. Slowing down and knowing the skill level you're getting truly outside of just the quality. Because what if they've got this one foreman who goes back and does all the touch-ups, makes it perfect, and is working 90 hours a week, and then burns out and leaves when the owner leaves? It can happen.
Yeah,
We know a lot of businesses like that.
Exactly, and it could totally hurt the.
That's happening.
Yeah, it
And
could totally hurt the deal. Yeah.
Yeah, how long have the employees been around for? How well are they actually trained? How did you train them? You mentioned the systems before, right, with your quality check. So anyway, I just slowed that down. You had one other piece of this question I think is really important. How much risk do you take? Tell me a little bit more what you mean by that question. When you say risk, what are you trying to figure out?
Okay, so I told you I have two partners, right? I'm the CEO. I have two other partners. One of them is our CFO, and then the other one's kind of more of a COO, so
Sure.
operations, all that. And sometimes we do differ, right, on our mentality of risk levels, right? I'm a little more just go,
Oh,
go,
yeah.
go, right? We'll figure it out. We'll pick up the
It'll
pieces as
work
we
out. Don't
go.
worry.
Exactly, right? But we make a really good team because my other two partners, and especially our CFO, is more of he's more of the, take a little more caution and really make sure that it's a good deal, or that we can afford it, or that we can handle this before we jump into anything. So it makes,
Yeah.
I think, for our company a really good partnership. But
Yeah.
I guess just, risk level, like that's where it comes from, is that because I'm, feel like, okay, well, we're inhibiting growth if we're not doing, more of these. And what I'm trying to do is setting big goals each year of how many we want to do. And, but there is risk, right? That's the thing that sometimes I don't always, um,
Yeah.
measure when I'm looking at doing these. So I guess just, I guess risk levels and, what,
Well, it's helpful.
any feedback or insight you could give me on that.
Well, your CFO should be running forward cash flow performas and helping you identify essentially what is that cash burn going to look like to take the acquisition, and ultimately run a ton of stress tests, right? Whatever you think is a good day, cut it in half. And what would be the decisions you'd have to operate to be able to forward on? Because I'm assuming you're using some form of debt, some form of profit cash, and some form of earnout. That's my assumption. Those are like the three ways you're buying a business based on your size and where you're at. And so naturally, the business is going to kind of tell you how much you can buy and how many of these you can buy. So the financial side, I would listen to the CFO, but I think on the risk assessment, you're definitely right. My business and I, my business partner and I, we have completely different risk profiles. My wife and I have completely different risk profiles.
Yep, me too. Yeah.
They say opposites attract. It's a real thing, right?
Mhm.
And so what I would slow down to think actually a little bit more about is the speed of integration is something that I think people don't think about with the risk. The inability to focus. The financial side will tell the story. It's math. Put it into a cash flow sheet. It will tell you if you can do it, and then you three have to work to get comfortable with that level of risk, right? And you can. I mean, I'll tell you right now, going after businesses where the owners will stick around is cheaper than going after the businesses at departure. And the reason why is because the immediate cash up front is going to be a higher tier when people are departing. They're not gonna trust you to leave all that cash in the business. But people who stick around, a lot of times they get their payout by taking what's in the bank, maybe a small cash payment, and then you can put most into an earnout, based on three quality metrics that you can drive to over several years. Because you
Mhm.
want them, if they're going to come in, they're a lot of times buying in. Sometimes they're even taking a small amount of equity rollover into the business. So you can create so much more incentive and really lower your risk by taking people who want to stay involved. So you may want to create a portfolio and be very mindful, just like when you invest in the market. How much am I going after the risk where I pay the cash up front? How much am I going after people maybe middle of the road? How much am I going after maybe even just acqui-hires, smaller shops, so crews of 3 or 4 that are coming in which, I'm bringing them in as a crew and I'm buying that crew essentially and their revenue. And it's actually about minimizing the risk and starting to look at a portfolio of acquisition versus finding the specific round peg to go in the hole every time. Because once you
Yeah.
figure out that
Okay.
math, for me, the risk all turns into the speed of integration. For instance, if you have not taken on the integration and it's not running smoothly, you have no business acquiring another company. And where we
Yeah.
see it break, right, with our experience of thousands of businesses we've got to work with, and a lot of them do go down this acquisition track, what we see is they get excited to go, my business is acquiring companies. That's a very risky, scary place to go. And the reason for that and the risk that you take is that you start to set goals on your growth of, I need to acquire this many companies. I'm sure you've done this in some
Mhm.
regards. You've written out a plan. It says, if I acquire this
Oh yeah.
many, I'll get to this number. right? Well,
Yep.
be very
Oh yeah.
careful with
Yep.
that, because the hard part is measuring the level of integration you got to where they feel like family, they feel like home. And then that's where you hear the phrase like, oh, they grew too fast and it all fell apart.
Hmm.
What's happening is the change management for people is actually what creates that. And so personally, I would actually put more of my risk view to looking at that more so than the financials, because your CFO is going to show you that cash. And that's just a decision you all have to make of, do you want to take that risk or
Yep.
not? But the risk tolerance that I find most people will forget is what speed of integration can you actually go at and why? What are you
And
hearing? What's sticking
question on
out to
that.
you? Yeah.
Yeah. Question on that. When you say integration, how do you know, or how would you say, you said you guys have done a few acquisitions, but how would you know,
Yeah.
like, you feel like, okay, this business is fully integrated, it's good to go, let's go to the next one, or let's take my energy or time on the next growth acquisition or the next thing that we
Yeah.
work
It's fairly intangible, right? It's fairly intangible.
on.
But what I would say is, are you seeing friendships grow between the employee bases, right? Were you able
Yeah.
to split up some employee bases, especially if you're acquiring in the same market? It's a little different if you're acquiring it to enter into a new market or a new vertical. But the other piece of it is that I think that you could tangibly make this a bit more, is to slow down and actually look at their attrition rates of employees and understand,
Yeah.
has that slowed down fully, right? Because you'll always deal with a little bit of a higher attrition through it. Either people think attrition is only when people leave you. That's just not true. Attrition is when you remove people, right? Because it means it was the wrong hire.
Hmm.
And so I don't just mean that because they're leaving. It can also be because you realize you've kind of weeded out the lower skill, or you've kind of got the talent that you want to
Hmm.
keep. You got to get through all of that. And I think that you've got to see that portion of the business extremely profitable, operating at the same level on a financial margin as your current shop with all the great systems implemented. And I think it's as simple as
Yeah.
doing a checklist, right? Like it's a transition plan and just listing out the 10 or 15 things that you want to be able to check the box to go, have we experienced this level of success yet? Have we experienced it for 3 months? Have we experienced it for 6 months? And maintaining that. And another way, if you need to go faster, is build a team that takes on acquisitions.
Yeah. Okay.
That's actually where I see the risk get into trouble, because it's addicting. It's addicting. You see the growth you got and you go, and you were on the right side of it this time. And you'll probably be on the right side the majority of the time. You're slowing down, you're thinking, but you are going to have one of those bad experiences. And that can set you back from acquiring again for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
It can be a toxic culture that just pummels.
Yeah. I know, which is what I'm, to prove, right, to my partners and just and to myself that
It's
this
not
is
going
a
to
good
happen.
strategy. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm trying to really make sure, or at least our first couple ones go really well, so I can show a model and show like, hey, this works, right? So I am very cognizant of that and trying to make sure that they go really well. So.
If you were to talk to the largest M&A firms, I've talked to some really, really successful folks that do this all day, every day. And I know the 3 things that they're going to look at is, what's the talent of the people? What's the financial implications of the business? And then number 3, how are you tying the people into the success of the integration? How are you tying the talent
Yeah, I
that
mean,
comes over into the
yeah,
integration somehow financially? And that's how I think you see most of these larger companies that do this M&A. They figure out ways. You always hear people about, like, there's this huge like acquisition bonus I get if I stick around for 2 years and I hit these qualifications, because it's about building this brighter, bigger future, right? And so figuring out what that is for your business and how to structure it, I think will reduce some of this risk, and ultimately those levers will get more comfortability within your business partners. But just
yeah,
I'm like you, Doug. I'm going a million miles an hour, growing like crazy. You're doing the same. It's nice to have people behind us that slow us down to go, what's this cash flow look like? What's our minimum cash threshold in the bank that we need to stick to and never drop below? Okay, Doug, you bring us an acquisition that's structured financially in a way that aligns all the incentives and doesn't take us below this cash threshold in the bank ever. Okay, we'll do it. And so I think if you can get your partners on that type of line, where there's a clear alignment on what the cash threshold is, then you guys will turn it more tangible and be able to make decisions even faster.
yeah. I think you're right, 100%. It's exactly when you just have that listed out and written down, so we're all on the same page, and then we can feel better about taking on some risk, but not risk to the point that could damage or hurt our, our bread and
Exactly.
butter, which is our current business. Right.
Exactly. Well, and I think at the end of the day, right? You've done this before. You've built systems. You've grown this. You just need to start now to look at this as a department of your business that you need to systemize. And I
Yeah.
think when that becomes grounded, the emotional side of it's gonna surpass, which is hard to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. I'm making some notes. Yeah. Cause it's just good for me to, think about that and make sure that we have that. So like you said, I'm not just the guy always just pushing, but we actually just make sure we slow down and so we
Yeah.
can do these and do them well.
Yeah. Well, Doug, I think what you've done is amazing, right? And I mean, I even just chatting with you, I know you want to, give back by, doing a lot of work for free in your communities and going out and serving underprivileged communities. I know you've got a big history of that and what you're working towards. Overall, just it's very obvious you've built a phenomenal business. And I know I speak for Jeff Rendell, who you work closely with. We appreciate your partnership and appreciate that you let us come along for the ride and help you in your journey of growth. We've really enjoyed it, and just to see how much you've done is just incredible. So kudos
Yeah.
truly to you and your team.
Yeah, thank you very much. And like I mentioned to you earlier, but yeah, Jeff and coaching us and really coaching me directly now one on one for the last couple of years has been instrumental in us growing and growing well, and not just growing fast, but like you said, having a lot of holes and gaps. Like he's really helped kind of close those gaps and make sure we have good processes and systems. And yeah, he's been a huge part. So we really appreciate you guys and him. And
Well, appreciate that, Doug. So if you are a painting company listening or watching right now, and I don't know, you're interested to join a bigger crew that might be, leading the way across the U.S., or if you're thinking about hanging up the shingle and you're looking for the right person that will treat your legacy right, I think Doug might be your guy to reach out to here. So keep that in mind if you're listening. Doug, where can people learn a little bit more about Arizona Painting Company?
You can check us out on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. You can check us out on our website, arizonapaintingcompany.com. And if anybody has any questions or does want to ever reach out to me, it's Doug at arizonapaintingcompany.com.
Awesome. Well, Doug, it was great to have you on. Thanks for bringing your story, but also this great question. I know so many businesses think about getting in the acquisition game, and then when they do, they get a little addicted and start figuring out what does this look like. And I think it was really good to catch you in this exact moment. And my gut says you're going to make a couple tweaks to your process, but I know you're already well on your way. So thanks again for joining us today. And for everybody listening in, keep catapulting your business and living your dream, and enjoy the entrepreneurial journey along the way. Thanks, everybody.